Okay, we are back with Deep Images. The Center Symposium rolls on. I'm Henry Covert, and myself, CF Roberts, and very special guest host, Briggie Williams, are continuing our deep dive into a film that's unexpectedly become about the biggest film on earth right now, Sinners by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan and an incredible cast. And it's a genre bending, it's a trip, as we said back in the day. It's a trip. So we hope you will join us. We're also appending some video essays from folks who weren't able to attend the roundtable. So we hope you enjoy their comments to further the texture of this lovely mosaic we are weaving for you. So let's get into it.
Dark desires, breathing in fire, ablaze, fueling my last days.
I'd like to introduce the first of our video essays, the ones that were brought to us by Deep Images contributors, past, present, future. The first one is going to be from our co-host, Justin Cotton. He was not able to make the segment due to a last-minute schedule conflict, but he has blessed us with a lengthy deep dive into Sinners and his perspectives on the film. And then after Justin's piece, we're going to go directly back into the Roundtable Symposium led by Briggie Williams. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much. Let's get into it.
Good evening. My name's Justin Cotton, and this is my review of the film Sinners, a 2025 horror adventure film, which I saw in the last 7 days at the cinema for the Henry Covert channel. Now, it's directed by Ryan Coogler, best known for the Black Panther films, and also stars Michael B. Jordan, who's playing two twins, Smoke and Stack, in this horror adventure story. Other key actors in it are Miles Caton as Sammy Preacher Boy Moore, who is Smoke and Stack's cousin, and Haley Steinfeld plays Mary, which is Stack's ex-girlfriend. This was an excellent film. It's currently grossed nearly 200 million as of tonight at the US box office. It has a running time of around 138 minutes, and it's currently in cinemas. It's set in 1932 Mississippi, and there's a definite sense of place and time in this film, which was welcome. It features a juke joint and therefore blues music from the era. Just in terms of characterization, and there were very strong performances in this film. Smoke and Stack Moore, the two twin brothers played by Michael B. Jordan, World War I Army veterans. Obviously, this is set some 14 years after the end of the war. They returned to their hometown of Clarksdale, Mississippi, 1932, after years working for gangsters in the Chicago outfit, and having absconded with ill-gotten gains from the Chicago outfit. They decide to open an enterprise in their hometown. They buy a sawmill from a racist landowner by the name of Hogwood, who tries to hide his racism, denies that there's any KKK these days in the local town. But he is secretly, as it turns out, the leader of the local Ku Klux Klan. Meanwhile, the twins plan to open a juke joint for the local black community, joined by their cousin Sammy, a preacher boy, who is an aspiring blues guitarist of some talent, as it turns out. His preacher father, hence the name Preacher Boy, warns Sammy against dabbling in blues music, which his preacher father believes is influenced by the occult and the supernatural. There's a supernatural and occult theme running through this film, as you'll find out. The twins set about traveling around the town in their vintage, looks like a Model T Ford car, to recruit people to assist with the juke joint in the opening night at the sawmill they've recently purchased. And it should be said that this film seems to take place over a 24-hour period. The twins recruit a pianist, Delta Slim, who is an amiable and iconic character in this film, certainly likes a drink, and I found to be an amusing character. Also, the singer Pearline, who Sammy takes a bit of a shine to. Um, Also, Smoke's ex-wife Annie is hired as a cook for the event, the opening night, and the Chinese couple Grace and Bo Chow, who run the general store in town, they are in charge of supplies for the opening night. They also hire a character by the name of Cornbread as security, as the bouncer for that night. In the lead up to the second half of the film, where most of the action takes place, most of the first half is really a build up to the second stanza of the film. Smoke and Annie, who were previously in a relationship, argue over the occult influence on the blues. Annie is in touch with the supernatural, believes in the occult, and believes that there is an occult influence on blues music, and that she, because she's attuned to the supernatural, has in the past protected Smoke and Stack to ensure that they came home from the war. Smoke replies to say that her protection against fate never helped very much with their young daughter, who as an infant had passed away. And that's a bit of an underlying theme in the film towards the end. At a train station, meanwhile, Stack runs into his ex-girlfriend, Mary. Mary is part white, but is upset with Stack for leaving for Chicago some time ago. Stack says to that he left her behind when he went to Chicago in order to protect her, because Mary can be passed off as white, and the complications of an interracial relationship in 1932 is the reason he says he left her behind. But Mary, for her part, has some African American ancestry and prefers to connect with the black world, where she primarily identifies. Later that evening, towards twilight, the action shifts to a rundown house in the countryside. An Irish immigrant bangs on the door of a young couple living there and says he's been pursued by local Indians or shamans, and he tries to seek refuge with the young couple, who, when you see a white hood behind them inside the house, you realize are KKK members. This character, the immigrant door knocker by the name of Remick, turns out to be a vampire, and he then attacks the husband, converts him into a vampire seemingly, and then the wife. Later that night, and the action then shifts to the opening night of the juke joint. From then on, the action mainly takes place in the sawmill, with the opening evening. Sammy's guitar music, blues guitar music, reaches almost supernatural power, and a bit like a drug-infused hallucination. While he's playing, figures from different cultures and time periods mingle or dance in the crowd. It's almost like a drug-infused sequence in that part of the film for a couple of minutes. Shortly thereafter, Remick and the young couple who he recently converted to vampirism arrive. They try to get into the hall but are denied entry. They offer music and music, but are denied, seemingly because they're not African American, but it's also suspected that they're not who they say they are. Mary, for her part, argues privately with Stack about this and says, well, shouldn't we be trying to earn as much income as we can? They argue. She goes outside and runs into the trio, Remick and the young couple, who then play what sounds like Irish folk music to Mary. But eventually, as she tries to walk off, she is attacked. She later comes back into the juke joint, apparently no longer the Mary that we thought she was. And she later seduces and then attacks Stack, apparently lethally biting him. Smoke shoots Mary repeatedly, but because she is now undead and a vampire, she is not harmed and escapes outside, while Stack apparently dies from the attack. Meanwhile, the security man, Cornbread, leaves his post on the front door to go outside and relieve himself. He's then predictably attacked by Remick and the other vampires. So we then have a situation where one by one partygoers leave, and then are outsider. They are attacked and turned or converted by the vampires, including Bo, the Chinese storekeeper, uh, who goes to get the car while his wife Grace is inside. Stack then emerges from the next room. People thought he was dead, but he's now a vampire. But he then flees the scene after Annie wards him off with garlic juice. Now, Anne, who knows something about vampirism, and says that there's certain things that can kill them. There's a stake through the heart. Silver is toxic to them. And they cannot enter a home or a premises unless they've been invited. Remick tries to enter or negotiate his way into the juke joint, and he promises to leave and not come in if Sammy is sent outside, because he wants Sammy, Preacher Boy, to join them for his blues skills in the blues, which he believes can summon fellow undead spirits. Remick tries to sell vampirism to the people inside the juke joint on the basis it's an escape from racism. Also offers them immortality and freedom. Rennick, being effectively the leader of the vampires, has supernatural knowledge of all sorts of those in his horde, and knows what's going on. He says that Hogwood and the clan plan to attack the juke joint at dawn. This had been suspected to be something that would occur by Smoke, but it's confirmed by Rennick. So when the survivors refuse the offer to come into the juke joint, Remick then threatens to attack Grace's daughter, Lisa, at her home. The result is that a desperate Grace panics and invites the vampires inside the juke joint. In the battle that follows, there's a high body count. Grace runs a stake through her husband Bo and kills him. Annie is bitten, but is killed by Smoke before she can turn into a vampire. Mary flees the joint after seeing Annie killed, and therefore apparently survives as a vampire. Pearline is killed by Remick, and Sammy, Preacher Boy, then smashes his silver blues guitar over Remick's head, creating pain that runs straight through the horde, because they feel the pain that's inflicted on their leader. Smoke then runs a stake through the heart of Remick, who is burned to a crisp, along with the horde by the rising sun outside. At that point, Sammy, Preacher Boy, returns to the church where there's a service underway, and confronts his father. And around the same time, after the sun has risen, predictably the clan show up with Hogwood, with a plan obviously to burn down the juke joint. But they are ambushed by Smoke, who has a stash of high-powered rifles, grenades, and other military equipment, which he had hidden nearby, near the juke joint. However, Smoke is fatally shot in the altercation with the clan before he machine guns Hogwood to death. But just before he dies himself, because he's fatally shot, Smoke has a vision of his ex-wife Annie and their lost daughter. Meanwhile, Sammy ignores his father's pleas to renounce blues music and to seek salvation. Instead, he leaves for Chicago and becomes a blues musician. We then head to the final scene of the film, which is set in Chicago in 1992, where Sammy is now an aged blues guitarist, reminding you a bit of Robert Johnson or John Lee Hooker in his appearance. He's visited by Stack and Mary, but who have not aged. They're still vampires, but he declines their offer of immortality and performs music for them. Sammy says that up until the carnage of that night 60 years ago, that night still haunts him, but it was the best day of his life. It's when he found his talent as a blues musician. Before Stack and Mary leave, Stack says that he agrees with that, because that night 60 years ago was the last time he saw his twin brother Smoke, and the last time he saw the sun, and the last time he felt truly free. So what are the takeaways from this movie? Well, one thing that leaps out straight away is that with that last scene is that despite Remek's promises of freedom and immortality, uh, freedom had turned out to be something of a pipe dream for Stack once he became an undead immortal vampire. Um, this is kind of reminiscent of other films dealing with vampires and the undead. The film itself is in the second half of the film is comparable in some ways to a superior version of Tarantino's From Dusk Till Dawn. But the comparison is only on a superficial level. This movie was much more layered and complex with standout performances. It kept your attention perfectly, and whereas I found Tarantino's From Dusk Till Dawn when I saw it in the late 90s to be overhyped and struggled to keep my attention on the film. There's certain undercurrents and themes in this movie, obviously. Racism runs as an undercurrent in the movie, and that's highlighted by the so-called forbidden love between Stack and half-caste Mary, where he feels that he can't take her to Chicago with him because of the even in the urban area there would be discrimination, potentially violence due to an interracial relationship, let alone having an interracial relationship in somewhere like 1930s or early 30s Mississippi. There's also the presence of the Klan in the film, of course. There's a fantastic music score. If you like blues music, you'll enjoy this. And even the two Irish folk tunes played by Remek and his vampire converts are a minor highlight in the film. Cinematography lends an excellent sense of time and place. One thing that sticks in my memory is the white buds of the cotton fields as the brothers drive their vintage car around town and around the fields in the first half of the movie. This film has done very, very well in terms of its Rotten Tomatoes score and its online reviews. Something like 95%, I think, was the critics' Rotten Tomatoes review. I didn't think it was necessarily as earth-shattering as that, but if I was to rate the film out of 5, I'd give it 4 stars out of 5, and definitely a recommendation that you watch it. It's a very, very good film. That's my review for the film, and thanks for listening. I'll bring this now to an end. Thank you.
So anyway, so yeah, let's get into some of the subtext
Right.
of the movie. Is there any
Yes.
subtext at all that grabbed you that you would like to talk about?
Rethink.
Okay,
I
okay,
mean,
so
you did bring up the Asian couple. I was interested in your take.
so the history behind that, the actual factual history, I will just say that way. And I encourage people to dig into this more because once you understand it, you will begin to see why things are the way they are. Nothing is organic. I will say that. So these are Chinese people. So you understand that there are Chinese people that were here in America that were brought here, right, to work, right, to work on railroads, right, okay, but
Yeah.
there was still slavery here, but there was still also indentured servitude. We'll go into that part as well with the Irish. Um, but as far as the Chinese are concerned, so they were here. So when there were no jobs for them, not no real industry for them, they were by white people because they didn't want Chinese people working in their town, so they put them in our community,
Mm.
and that's why they're still there today. That's why you see all of the nail salons, the hair salons, they run all by Chinese. Some of the grocery stores at that time, not so much now, but the all the grocery stores that you even see now, that they put them there. They set them up with money. They gave them not even grants. They just gave them money. They gave them supplies. This is what the government did, and then said you can go and extract wealth from that community, and that's why they are there.
That's still happening though.
And yes, this is what I'm trying to tell
The-
you. Yes.
I live. Full disclosure, I live in quote unquote the hood, and
Hmm.
just down the street from me there are it's festooned with immigrant and multiracial stores
Hmm.
and restaurants.
Hmm.
I mean, where I used to live had a lot of it, but because it was
Hmm.
mostly Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
My
Mm-hmm.
whole neighborhood is mostly black, but there is a
Mm-hmm.
strong presence of Asian, of Hispanic, and Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Right.
tons of halal eateries.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I
Mm-hmm.
don't eat meat anymore, but it looks
Mm-hmm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild. It's like everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Right. And those people are, and people will say, oh, well, it can't be. Well, it is because how are they getting these loans to open up these shops? And Black people will go to get these loans and they don't give us loans. I am
Yeah.
somebody who owns a home and it took me a year to get a bank to lend to me. I can go into it, but I'm not. And this is like modern day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Mhm.
my credit score was like 750, and I was making, I was making like $1,500 a week. I have no kids. My credit score is amazing. You know what I mean? I had money. I had
Hmm.
lots of
Hmm.
it,
Yeah.
and I still could not get a bank to lend to me. So these things still happen. As a side note, now they don't care. You know what I mean? They don't care who they go rogue on. Wealth extraction is real. And the reason why I know they don't care who they are extracting wealth from is because a lot of, well, there's a saying that when white people have a cold, the Black people all have the flu. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
by the time it gets to you, it has already been affecting us for a very, very long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And even though, but again, just like the Choctaw, we're like, hey, we're trying to tell you something. It's by the time we're listening to it's already too late. Do you know what I mean? It's already like
Yeah.
so. I always say we're like the canaries in the coal mine, and I believe in my heart of hearts, I truly believe, and if I'm not right, please correct me. But I do believe that white people see this. They're just like, I'm glad it's not me, but what they don't want to acknowledge that soon it will be you. Does that make sense? Am I
Yeah.
wrong about that, or am
Some
I
of it's already
I
is.
don't think so.
that I'm wrong about that? You don't think I am, or
Uh,
you?
I
do they
don't think
see
you're wrong
it?
at
Yeah, I
all.
see it. That's why you have to get. That's why you have to kind of make your own way, man. Because
And
just
what
because
do you think,
I mean,
Chuck?
white privilege. Obviously, I have it, but growing up in the South, I mean, I'm not gay, but they sensed I was different. I looked different, I acted different, and so I didn't have the money. I wasn't given the opportunities, and that's why
Mm-hmm,
now when I live in a
mm-hmm,
multicultural neighborhood, more
mm-hmm,
lower income, I
mm-hmm,
feel right at home. I should have been here all along, but I was born in a well-off
mm-hmm,
part of town. My dad couldn't
mm-hmm.
afford it. He
Right.
overstretched, and
Mm-hmm,
we were basically poor rednecks, and we were living in this like neighborhood that was
mm-hmm,
already stuck up. Then flash forward 30 years later, and it was like
mm-hmm.
some of the most expensive sought out property around, and that's how I was able to sell my dad's house and survive. Because
Wow.
people were like, we're gonna buy that house, and it may look good if we buy it." And I'm like, "Yeah, but the basement's crummy. My house is falling apart."
Mm-hmm,
They're like, "No, but we'll get it fixed up because we want the status of living on that street." I mean, this woman literally said that to me, and I was like,
mm-hmm.
"Wow." I was like, "I'll take your money, fine." And it was hard for them to get a loan.
Wow.
Her husband was an
Yeah.
immigrant.
Yeah, yeah. No, understand. It kind of we're like a little off topic, but it doesn't. People will say, "Well, everyone has it rough." Well, everyone may
Mhm.
have it rough, but no one has it rough just because of the color of their skin. That's a whole other animal.
Right, it
That's
is.
a whole systems are set up and in place because of the color of your skin. Systems are set up and put in place for the color of people having white skin. So there are systems that are set up. So if those systems are set up for white people and are artificially constructed for them to be successful and to live
Right.
a certain way, then why wouldn't you believe that systems can be set up for black people to not succeed, not get loans? Basically, you're being sanctioned. Think about it that way. If we were a country, if black people were a country, we would be sanctioned. You don't get education, you don't get housing, you don't get healthcare. We are not going to participate with you, even if you have the money and the credit and everything that we say you need to survive, to make it. We just will not sell to you. We won't do business with you.
Well, I
It's
feel
like
like
you're just being.
the people who do break,
Mhm,
I think metaphorically or
mhm,
mystically, spiritually, I do think these black billionaires and the billionaire class, and there's another name for
Mhm,
it, I can't remember term,
mhm,
but I do think
mhm,
they almost literally have sold their souls for,
mhm,
because almost every one of them, when you see them talking, they're just there's nothing here. They're vacant.
mhm,
You know, they've given
mhm,
up everything so that they can have the pleasures of the flesh and power
mhm.
that they think that white people have, and
Yes,
it's
yes,
scary. It's scary because you're
yes.
raised in our generation. We were raised to look up to those kind of black people. Like,
Mhm,
look at the
mhm,
Cosby. See,
mhm.
black people can have money too. There's no racism. It was
Mhm.
all a myth, man.
Right, but that's just one family or two or 10, or even if it was a
Right.
hundred families, that is a
Yeah.
drop in the bucket
Sure.
compared to the intergenerational disparities that have been able to compound over hundreds of years that have changed the lives of generations and future generations.
Mhm.
Just like the pendulum swings the other way. You've got people who owned other people, created great wealth, and they are still living off of the compound interest of free slave labor, which goes back to what was happening in this movie um, and why Mary was seen as such a threat because she represented all of the things that we're talking about right now.
Mhm.
She represents all of that.
Mhm.
So and
Mhm.
also then to go back to the Chinese shop owners that still exists today, and that's why they are in our community today.
Mhm.
It's the same thing. And if you try to open up a store that would rival them as a black person, they would be like, "Oh no, this is our territory." That has happened today.
Mhm.
That type of stuff still happens. Or if
Was that
you
kind of what
were
Chinatown was like for a long time in New York?
Well, Chinatown, all that money stays in that area because
Yeah.
everybody there is basically working to keep money in that community. So if you were a black person that you say you want to open up a shop in that community, they just wouldn't go there, which is what black people should do when these stores open up in their community. You can't tell them not to be there, but you don't have to shop there.
Yeah,
You
you
see
don't
what
have
I
to support
mean?
them with your money.
Right, the dollars don't stay in the community. The dollars will stay in that community maybe like 6 hours, as opposed
Mhm.
to 3 days in other communities. So anyway, that's what was going on with 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 that couple. That all that has come up, but it is what it is. It's part of the history, and that's just the way it went down. Now, as far as Sammy getting scratched on the face, right, by Remick,
Mhm.
that to me represented the scarification, African scarification. If you ever seen
Mhm.
the African,
Yeah.
right? So, and they have different, like even in Black Panther, Michael B. Jordan had the scars like on his
Yeah,
body also.
I've
So
read a
Yeah.
lot
it's
about that. Body
yeah,
modification is something I kind of studied in the 90s.
right, yeah. So those things were like to ward off evil. It was different symbols, different scars represented rites of passage, things of that nature, turning into a man, womanhood, um, going to another level of respect within the village, the construct of the village, those sorts of things. So that it kind of reminded me of that, those scars, which he still had, when he was, of
Kind of
course, an older
shows
man.
he's a survivor.
Right, yeah. That he's a survivor. So I would say. And it had also to me like this Robert Johnson Crossroads.
Mhm.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense to you
What's
at
that?
all?
Mhm.
Um, the music that Sammy was playing kind of had that Robert Johnson, um, who,
Yeah,
the movie Crossroads, it was sort of reminiscent of that in that you were summoning this evil. Very
unfortunately, Robert
interesting.
Johnson didn't survive very long to pass the
Yeah.
baton on.
No, he died, and none of
Devil
his
got him.
music was copywritten, so it was just stolen, and which was very sad, of course. But a lot of music was, which goes back to again Remick and wanting this music and the music just being taken. It has so many layers to it that
Yeah.
but see, whether you know all of this backstory or this sort of this black backstory and this history, you can still, of course, enjoy this movie. You don't need to have, be as encyclopedic as I am. I'm just very
Mm.
invested in the history of America, and this isn't Black history. This is the history of America, as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned. So yeah, so it was really very entertaining, very moving. Again, cinematography and the lighting was amazing, and I
Yeah,
thought,
very well made.
and here's the thing that I found out today. Um, much to the chagrin of Variety magazine, which is an industry magazine for movies, which is
Yeah, they're
very
shills.
disparaging toward this movie, which I thought was, oh, see, and people keep saying that racism is all gone, and here we are.
Well, what's happened is they're trying to they from the very beginning they tried to construct this narrative that the movie can't succeed. There's no way it can
Mm.
profit, even if it's Ryan Coogler or Michael Jordan. And
Mhm,
Mm.
that guy I told you guys about earlier, 4KO, the Cajun
mhm,
comic book
Yeah.
movie commentator, he actually
mhm,
bought into that, even though he loved
mhm,
Sinners and he's very into Black history. But he was like, yeah, it's not going to make the money. And he loves talking about box office, which to me, it's a curiosity, but it's not something I'm obsessed with at all. And,
right.
Yeah.
but a lot of people bought into it. But then I read today that there were people that even Ben Stiller, as far as rich white people, said, no, this movie needs to be encouraged. It's going to make the money. And it's proven everybody wrong. And what's fucked up about some of their jealousy is not so much just that now, right now it's made about, if you can't count break even, I'd say by today, from what I've read, it's probably made a $50 million profit. That's
No, it's no,
after break
it's
even because it's made twice his budget and almost three times. And
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
the
I
other
mean,
thing
it's
is though,
already made it, so it's
but,
like,
but a
yeah.
lot of that money, some of that money, it went to the deal that Ryan Coogler made. He made that
Yes.
unprecedented deal.
Yes.
He got first cut, he got a percentage of the profits, and he gets to own the movie after 25 years. And I read that
Mhm.
the industry people are mad as hell, the white industry people.
Yeah. They say it's basically the quote unquote end of the studio system.
Fine, burn
And
it,
I
burn it
pray to
all.
God that's true,
Yeah, like
you
Michael
know?
Jordan
That's
said in Black Panther, burn it all.
Yeah.
I'm giving this a very hard eye roll. I'm giving it, that should be like instead of two snaps, I'm giving it two hard eye rolls. I'm giving it that statement two hard eye rolls that those people are saying because, like Coogler said, as I listened to and read a lot of the interviews that the offer that he got, which he wanted more, but they came back and said, no, we're willing to give you this was the same thing that Mel Gibson got for The Passion of the Christ. So he was
Mm.
saying, this is not unusual. You're only
Yeah,
hearing about this because
he's
this is
black.
a Black person. And
Yeah.
I read today in Variety that it's already made back. It was a $90 million production.
It's
It's
made almost
already made back.
300 million by today, this
Yeah,
afternoon,
it's already made. It's like, what are you
worldwide.
talking about? I'm going to see it next week in IMAX. Like those tickets are not cheap. I mean, like, and it's completely sold out across the country. People I know who are already going to see their fourth screening of this because it's so
Yeah.
dynamic and
That's
it's
what's tripping
only.
people out. All these industry people are like,
Yeah.
this is unnatural. The curve always is a drop because they'll cite movies like
Mhm,
uh
mhm,
the Falcon and Harrison Ford. What the hell is that movie called?
mhm,
I have
mhm.
a funny name for it. Uh
Uh, Captain America, Men of Action, or something
Captain
like that.
America, Brave New World. I
What?
call it the Falcon, Brave New Ford because they recast
Okay.
Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford, honestly, my opinion, Harrison Ford is absolutely awful. There are people on our show who will probably get mad at me for saying this. He is
Period.
terrible.
Mhm,
They
mhm.
didn't need to make him the guy and pay him all that money. They could have given the extra money to Sam Mackey. Not Sam Mackey. I think Mackey. But the thing is, that movie dropped off 68% the second week.
Wow.
Now, I personally thought the movie was okay. My
Mhm,
barometer is, did it remain with me? Do I want to see it again? Did I glean some things? And to be honest,
mhm.
no, it pushed the overall MCU narrative forward a little bit more than
Right.
it had been in a couple of years. That's it, though. I mean, a lot of people said its mission was to convince you, the viewer, and people invested in the MCU that Sam Wilson can be Captain America despite the obstacles. But what I read, people aren't buying that, and this
Mhm.
is the bad thing about it. If you look at, there's two ways of looking at this. The 4KO guy said these people are racist. You know, he's like they're saying Sam and can't be Captain America. He said, but that's canon. That's in the comic books. Okay, now he's right. It is in the comic books. I'm not a racist. I love that character.
Mhm.
But when he became Captain America in comics, I was a stupid idea.
Mhm.
I thought it was why can't he be the
Wow.
Falcon? Why can't he be his own? That was the whole point. Gene Colan created that character in 1970.
Mhm.
He was the
Mhm.
second black superhero ever made. And that was the whole point. Is he had his own
Mhm.
identity in
Mhm.
contrast with white America, Captain America. And that's why their book sold so well because people were like, "Oh wow, this is kind of interesting," you know.
Mhm.
Um,
I'm freezing.
but the Falcon, yeah, that movie dropped, and I think that's what they can't believe that something can happen in an inverse fashion. That this is going upward on the curve
Mhm.
every week. It's not unprecedented. It's just it is unusual nowadays. I mean, it's hard for these movies to make a huge amount of money that went into them. But that's the studio's
Mhm.
fault. The studio did not have to spend, millions and millions and millions of dollars reshoots on Falcon and Winter Soldier. They did not need to do it. They could have sat down with that script, hammered it out, made the movie. That's what Thunderbolts did. It didn't have hardly any reshoots. They just had the story, they made the movie, and they put it out. I mean, Falcon and Winter Soldier said, we've got to construct this film so we can do this and this and this placement. And it's like, God damn, Disney, can you be more soulless? I mean, what do you think about this movie, Chuck? What are your thoughts on all this and the subtext and the meanings and the all that going deep into
I thought it was just fantastic. I didn't even catch about half the subtext Briggie mentioned. Uh, the but just I like having the lowdown on that.
Mhm.
Man, just I was anticipating this being really good just because of all the buzz about it, but I was not disappointed, man. I just watched it and I wrote you about it. I just said, "What a beast."
Yeah, he had a great quote. Oh, a beast movie.
Yeah. And just the music and
Yeah.
everything and the way it all gets kind of thrown together in this polyglot, and it's just
Mhm.
fantastic. And I was just blown away. And now, it's just really funny because it's my wife and I have this whole thing where we'll do insane rewrites of movies. It's just something we do for fun, and it's just
Mhm.
like we come up with this idea for Jaws, and we'll just kind of pitch ideas off each other and say, okay, instead of getting eaten by the shark, like Quint like punches his way out of the shark, and then I do one better. I say, no, Quint and the shark make friends and spend the rest of the movie terrorizing the coast. But but yeah, and it's almost like I feel like I don't know, it almost kind of goes that way into like a Chuck and Heather production toward the end where it's just like yeah, and then the clan shows up in droves and then smoke comes out and blows everybody away and he gets shot in the process, but then you know he gets reunited with his wife and son and kills all the clansmen and goes to heaven.
The ending
Just,
was weird. I mean, somebody told me they
and I'm
thought.
not complaining because I
Well,
loved it, but
somebody told me they thought the end was kind of tacked on. Like he goes through all the vampire stuff, and then all of a sudden, his last energy, he gets those guns and decides to kill the clan when he sees them, and makes
yeah.
his last stand, which has nothing to do with the vampires or the juke. It takes place at the juke joint. And I don't agree that it was unnecessary. What I told him was, I think it was a reward to the audience, pretty much.
Yeah,
Like
I'll go along with
you've
that.
stuck with this dude the whole time. He's not gonna take down some vampires. He's gonna take down these motherfuckers who sold him that house.
Yeah, I mean, think about if you think about the history of the Klan as it relates to the rise of it, which was after slavery ended, which was where most of the lynchings took place. It didn't
Yeah.
happen during slavery, it happened afterwards because if you owned people who were property, you didn't want to kill your property because it
Right,
was an
right.
investment. When we were no longer a financial investment, then they would just kill you at will, right?
Yeah.
So so you've got like 100 years or so of slavery, and then another 100 years of Jim Crow slavery, where that's where the rear
Mm.
terror happens, and you see it represented in movies and newspapers, and you know, and who's always on the upside of that or those transactions? It's always the white people, right?
Mhm. Oh,
Well, wouldn't you have liked to have, at some point, as a black person, take down the Klan who was
Of
terrorizing you
course.
for about two?
yeah.
Well, that's what that was
Yeah.
about.
Right.
It's a
And
So at
that
great
was,
least,
it's a great piece of catharsis.
it is.
right.
That was also an echo of the black exploitation movies of the 70s.
Mhm,
Mhm.
You don't really
mhm,
see that
mhm,
happening in black movies nowadays. Like, I mean, you have Spike Lee making some black movies, though with each movie he embarrasses himself further. Um, he does. He's ridiculous. These stupid
Yeah.
remakes. It's
mhm,
just it's
mhm,
pointless. It's pointless.
mhm,
He's
mhm,
just doing it for quick money. He doesn't give a damn. And
mhm.
sorry, I'm on the record. I hate Spike Lee's remakes. So, and now he's getting ready to do a high and low, and I'm like, dude,
Ooh,
give it
yeah.
up, man. Give it up.
I heard that oof. I heard that oof, Chuck. Yeah.
But my
I.
point is, you don't see
Mhm,
the black movies too much where that kind of catharsis, that kind of you know, vicarious revenge goes on. But in the black movies of the '70s, it was very prevalent. As the '80s went on, the independent black films went more into drama. Except for Jamal Fanaka, was still having black people
mhm,
killing racists and get
mhm,
crazy. But that kind of vanished. So I really think it kind of harkened back to
mhm,
I didn't really think
Yeah.
about that until you were talking about how the other themes, like the sex, are harking back to it.
mhm,
Well,
mhm,
one thing I can think of is it's almost like it reminds me in a way of the end of Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, which I covered
mhm,
like, eons ago.
Yeah.
But just the way it ends with him just still at large,
mhm,
and said audiences just cheering, which of course
mhm,
kind of white establishment people had to be kind of horrified by.
How do
mhm.
you feel about who do you feel the audience is supposed to be or happens to be most invested in as a point of view character or protagonist? Would it be Smoke or would it be Sammy or both? Does it shift? I don't know.
You're asking me. You're
Yeah, I'm
asking
asking you.
me. Oh, okay, okay.
And both of you.
I believe, again, through the black perspective, it just depends on who you resonate with more as you would in your daily life. Are you more shamanistic and rooted in your ancestry? As a black person, this would be certainly who Annie would be, who carries on tradition and understands that this religion that was thrown on us has really hindered us more than anything else. And the father who doesn't want his son to go and play this music because his father's been completely indoctrinated into a Eurocentric worship of deity that's telling them that your glory is going to come after. And this is what
Yeah.
he wanted his son to believe. And his son said, no, my glory is now, and I'm going to play the music of my ancestors, and I'm going to live with them through this music and honor them through this music by keeping their spirits alive as I play and expand who I am as a black man who had to live through these horrifying times. So there's a lot that goes on in there, and then there are those same black people that are in the black church, swing low, sweet chariot, or our day is gonna come, and they're still in the church, and the person
Mhm.
who's the witch doctor to them now are the Creflo dollars who say, "Give me your money and you will
Yeah.
be rich." See, so those people, so it's so multi-layered. Am I going off? Am I going too? Am I
No, no.
taking it
I
too?
No, you're not.
the thing is not. This is for my knowledge. Uh,
Mhm,
I guess with the exception of maybe Lord Shango, which no one's seen, but
mhm,
I'd say since Ganja and Hess, this is the first black film I've seen that actually challenges Christianity as something that's harmed black people that we were
Yeah.
forced to embrace. And what's really
mhm,
weird about living in the South, and I know y'all probably both have had these experiences, but I have them like literally every hour because I spend my life online. there's a huge Christian black female presence in the South, and it's depressing because if you want to date a black female, and the first thing they say is, "I put God first all the time," I'm like, okay, click, bye. I mean, it's like I don't even want to go. I don't even want to go there because I have, I'm not saying I'm better than Christians, but I have evolved beyond the need for Christianity a long time ago, about 30 years ago. It was important to me
Yeah,
as a young person,
sure.
but I feel like that's a barrier, because I'm such a humanist. I mean, and that's especially, it's been oppressed. A black woman in 2025 yielding herself to an invisible deity that there's no proof exists. That goes against the whole struggle for freedom, and I don't know. It kind of sad and tragic.
Well, I will just tell you that understand that when you're in a battle, it doesn't matter what race it is or what time it is.
Right.
We're in that struggle right now here in America. Who are the first people that are taken out? They take away the thinkers, the philosophers, the doctors, the educators, the
Yeah.
people who understand history, that inhabit a sense of
The journalist.
loyalty to his, right, the writers, the journalists. So that same thing happens when, say, now let's talk about the transatlantic slave trade. They took your medicine women, they didn't take slaves, they took your engineers, they took all of these people, that your tribesmen, the ones that were the head of these tribes, and they killed them all and
The
left
nation's
us,
collapsed.
right, and left us what we have now. So
Yeah.
think about that.
Africa's
And
still
now,
recovering.
right, and so now you have Burkina Faso who's rising up, and you've got, Abraham Traore, who was like, right now he's in Russia and he's like putting it down over there, and it's so
I
great because
saw some
today's
of
Victory Day.
that. Yeah.
And he's over there, of course, with all of the other dignitaries, because this is the day that Russia basically kicked the shit out of the Nazis. Like, America is not even there. They're not even talking about this. Like, didn't
Yeah.
Americans die in the fight of to denazify the world? But they are not even being honored. Yeah.
This is the real skeleton of these people. It's in their DNA. I don't know. I don't get it. A class
Hmm.
thing, it's just uh they have been engineered to destroy human rights, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
To
imperialism
help it along, to help it along, basically, to
Yeah.
yeah,
really help it along, and to help you by their identity, you are going to facilitate your own destruction because you're too, again, the seduction, that's also that vampire energy that is here, it is present. It is the seduction. I'm black, you're gay, I'm gay, you're trans, I'm trans, you're Native American, so am I, and
I'm
follow
trans.
me over here. And then what you're doing is you're walking into a trap. You're like, you're walking into that trap, and before you can turn around to get out, the door has been slammed shut. And now you're like, what do I do? It's
Mhm.
very much giving to serve man. It's very much giving that. That's a
Yeah.
Twilight Zone
Twilight
reference.
Zone,
If
yes.
people
Mhm.
don't
Cannibals.
know, it's very much
It's a
giving that.
cookbook.
It's a cookbook.
Yeah.
It's a cookbook, and that's what America is. It's a giant cookbook. So if you're not on top
Yeah, it's
of
not a melting
understanding,
pot, it's a cookbook.
no, it's a cookbook, and we're all being
Yeah.
cooked in it. So okay, so let me because you asked me questions about the brothers, and I was giving you one uh opinion about how Annie plays into with smoke, and I would say Stack also, for those people who identify with that energy. There are many. It's this movie is deep. I can really go there. That really play into that that trope where this is going to be the downfall of our community if you don't stop messing around with these white women and their and what you think is love is really a fetish, and you need to just come to terms with that. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah,
Am I
yeah. I
going too
mean,
far?
it's if you break it down on the uh personal level, I don't think it's always a fetish.
I'm saying in terms of my experience, from what I have seen from the outside looking in, being in the Black community and what Black men bring into our community. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about just, oh, you have a white wife. I'm talking about what you consistently bring into our community.
And do you think the men
That's
that
what I'm
do that
talking
are
about.
just fools? They're just suckers for this? Or do you
No,
think?
that I think that the people call it colorism. I just call it straight up racism. It's colorism. Sure. I mean, you know what it
Oh yeah, yeah.
is.
You're talking about black people and the level of their skin tone, right?
Right. So you've got Black people and then who are, let's say, you're already being discriminated against, and then you want to discriminate within that community based on the shade of color you are within that community. And that to me, I see, so that's why I'm saying it's who you're bringing into our community and why are you bringing them here? That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because there's a level of self-hatred, a level of not being proud of who you are. It's so multi-layered, but what I believe is that it has to do with, it's like you think because you have a Gucci bag that somehow that makes you part of an elite class of people and imbues you with some sort of power when you haven't done the work to deserve that power. So you want this particular type of woman because you somehow believe it gives you some status to have this woman.
Do
You
you
see what
feel
I
like
mean?
in the movie that we're talking about that the contrast then is with you were
Contrast with the brothers.
yeah, because the other one is with someone who's rooted, like literally in
Mhm,
this case, in
mhm,
the ancestors and
mhm,
their culture. So
mhm,
it's like a huge
mhm.
contrast. Okay, that was another installment of our Center Symposium. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you'll stay tuned. We've got some more to come. And don't forget to like and subscribe, hit that notification bell. And thank you so much for watching. Take care.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.